Number 10. Veil. Through this video, you will come to find out that a lot of the wedding traditions that we practice these days have some pretty messed up origins. We'll get through a lot of them throughout this list, but let's start off by talking about the bride's veil. These days, a lot of brides choose to wear a veil on their wedding day. With so many different styles to choose from, this accessory is known to add that extra little pizzazz, little spice to the look. But throughout history, veils were used for different things, some of them being a tad bit messed up. Just a smidge. The rather obvious reason for brides to wear a veil back in the day had to do with religion and staying modest. But this hasn't been the only reason for veils. In ancient Rome, brides wore veils because it was believed to be effective at warding off evil spirits. The most messed up reason for the veil though, at least in my opinion anyway, has to do with the wedding transaction, so to speak. Since back in the olden days, marrying your daughter off was seen as more of a transaction, brides would wear veils to cover their faces and they wouldn't be lifted until after they were proclaimed husband and wife, so that the groom wouldn't be able to back out if he didn't like how his bride looked. Seems pretty messed up to me, but what are your thoughts on it? Tell us down in the comments.
Number 9. When doves cry. I've been to one wedding where they released doves, like actual real life doves, and I was like, do they actually do this? I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know it was a real thing. Why do we do this? Well, because doves mate for life, and they build a nest, and then they Netflix and chill until the end of their dove days. Sounds like perfect symbolism if I've ever heard it. Back in ancient Roman and Greek times, doves were often used as gifts from the bride to the groom. Pretty shitty gift if you ask me. Here's a bird that we now have to both take care of. The snow white ring-necked dove is used by magicians. They can't fly too well, they don't have a homing instinct, whereas rock doves, the ones commonly used in weddings that we see fly away over Nana's head, they have a homing instinct for hundreds of miles, so they're perfect for the gig. But they couldn't be released during foul weather, and they needed 2 hours before the sun sets in order for them to fly home. The wedding band has less rules than the doves. That's amazing. Their rider is much smaller. If you were to catch one of these doves at a wedding, you were also allowed to keep it back in the day. Also, great hands. I don't know who's catching birds or why they want to keep it and put it in their pocket, but you do you.
At number 8, best man. These days, the role of the best man normally goes to the guy who's closest to the groom, whether that's a brother or a best friend. But back during the time where women were married off like property, the role of the best man was very different and was all about protecting one's assets. Back then, bride napping was actually very common, so if there was someone else who wanted to marry someone who was already promised to another person, they might try and steal her away for themselves. Yeah, why? I don't know. This is where the best man came in. The best man's job was to protect the bride, and if she was stolen, the best man would be the one to enter whatever battle or duel was necessary to get the bride back. The best man was literally there to be the best fighter. The best man was also there to watch over the bride to make sure that she didn't try and make a run for it herself. They really said, try to derail this wedding and see what happens.
Number 7. A June wedding. As we're counting down this list slowly but surely, you've probably begun fantasizing maybe about your own wedding one day. Maybe it's a beach wedding, maybe it's themed like a winter wonderland. Doesn't that sound cozy? It's your big day, get creative. They say the best month to get married is June, and from a Canadian point of view, I can absolutely agree with that. In ancient Roman times, however, getting married in June was a must, not just a thing you wanted to do. See, June was the month of the god Juno. They protect women in life when it comes to marriage and childbirth, so if it's between that and like, I don't know, Halloween, obviously we're gonna go with June. Better omens for sure. Another myth is that bathing was rarely done back then, so when majority of the population did finally, wash up at the end of May or beginning of June, that's often when it would happen. Everybody smelled nice, they felt good, and they wanted to celebrate. So it was perfect timing. Better get me while my pits smell good, you know? That's a myth, but I can also see it checking out. A June wedding in ancient Roman days was also done so that after a spring birth, the mother can quickly hop back into action and help with that summer's harvest. Maternity leave who? Never heard of her.
At number 6, hashtag twinning. You know how at weddings the bridesmaids are usually wearing matching outfits? Well, this tradition dates back centuries, though it has changed slightly over the years. Remember how I mentioned that people would sometimes try to kidnap the bride on her wedding day? Well, other than the best man and the groomsmen trying to play their part in protecting the bride from being taken, the bridesmaids also played a part in that too. The bridesmaids used to dress identically to the bride so that it would make it harder to spot her and therefore prevent anyone from kidnapping her. This practice dates all the way back to ancient Rome and feudal China and didn't really start to fade out of tradition until around the 1880s. These days you get a couple of gifts from the bride for being in her posse, but back then you didn't get anything and you had to risk your safety for your girl Becky, who doesn't even want to marry Jeff down the block. I don't know.
Number 5. A toast. My favorite part of a wedding has to be the speeches or the toasts. They're always way too long or too personal, or you know what, just too depressing. Just way too sad, just tears. You're like, why? Why are we talking about this? It's a nerve-wracking part, even as a guest, just to get up randomly and be like, okay, look at me everyone, hi. No, I don't want to do that. Back in the 1800s though, only men were allowed to give these toasts. The oldest friend, the groom, the best man, and then the father of the bride. The whole thing would have been done in 8 minutes. Guys suck at speeches. They're just like, a lot of ums, that's all I'm saying. Wedding toasts go back as far as the 6th century BC. When Greeks were getting married, the father of the bride would drink the first glass of wine just to make sure it wasn't poisoned or anything. Romans would also drop a piece of burnt toast into the wine in order to make the wine taste less bitter, hence the term toast. Yeah, now we get it. Yeah, wine was so bad back then, they had to use burnt toast Crystal Light just to get through the day. Yuck.
At number 4, transaction. I find it to be just a little bit messed up how before now marriage was mostly about money or status and not about love. For a long time people didn't get to choose who they got to marry, and there was almost always some kind of monetary transaction involved in the wedding. This whole idea here is a reason for the traditional act of the bride's father walking her down the aisle and giving her away, so to speak. In the past, fathers of the bride and groom would come together to establish an agreement, like X amount of money for someone's daughter or whatever. Once that was set up, the wedding became a big deal to see if the transaction would actually go through, and many precautions were put in place to make sure that no one backed out. One of those precautions was the act of the father walking his daughter down the aisle. This was done so that they stayed close to one another in the off chance that the groom or his family decided to back out. That really took the romance and sparkle out of weddings now.
Number 3, wedding cake. As the youngest of 3, I can confirm that we get away with the most. The youngest often do. The middle child is just plain ignored, and then the oldest, well, they usually have the most responsibility in the family. Usually when a bride and groom cut the cake on their big day, it's for them. They save a piece till their anniversary, they put it in their partner's face, it's fun, whatever they want to do. Often in history, the eldest child would get the first slice. How lucky is that? When it came down to cutting the actual cake too, well, that meant that the bride is no longer a virgin. It's an awkward few bites. Wedding cakes today are delicious and they're pretty much an art form. TV shows are devoted to them, like Cake Boss and other cake shows that I can't think of. If you're lucky, you might find a few cake charms on the inside as well back in the day. Real, non-edible cake charms. You wanted to find these in your cake. They brought good omens to the table. To find a rocking chair meant that you're going to live a long life. An anchor means you're bound for adventure, sailors ahoy. And a purse meant that you would have good fortune. Let's just hope you didn't find the charms with your teeth, or else you would be using said new fortune fixing your chiclets. Very metal, very real. Not good.
At number 2, plague flowers. In a lot of weddings, the flowers are very important. There's the flowers for the centerpieces, the bouquets for the bride and bridesmaids, there's flowers everywhere. Get your Benadryl. But why is that? Well, the idea of carrying a bouquet at a wedding dates back to ancient Greece, where it was believed that carrying a bouquet was thought to ward off evil spirits, but a little later on down the line, the presence of bouquets at weddings got a little bit darker and a little more precautionary. During the Middle Ages into the Renaissance, when the Black Death was running rampant throughout Europe, people were trying anything and everything to try and ward off the plague. Back then, people believed that smells carried contagion, so people would fill their pockets with fragrant things to keep the plague at bay. This was later integrated into wedding practices, and brides started carrying around a bouquet of stinky stuff like garlic and dill to protect them from catching anything. Over the years, these stinky stuff was replaced with nice smelling flowers, but really, no one cares what's in the bouquet anymore, because all people want to do is participate in the wedding Hunger Games and fight to the death to catch the bouquet at the end of the night. Why? Why are we hurting each other for this? Why?
And finally, number 1, wedding rings. One ring to rule them all. Perhaps the most important piece of the wedding puzzle, rings. Whenever somebody is about to pop the question, everybody around them always needs to see the ring. Congrats, let me see the ring. Oh my god, is it this? Is it this? Egyptian pharaohs first used rings to represent this eternal life. The circle has no beginning or ending. They created this concept that we adore to this day. The center of the ring was also believed to be the gateway to the unknown. finger just disappears. You're like, what the f? These Egyptian Ouroboros rings were the first, a snake eating its own tail, #love. When Greeks came in the picture, they took this tradition, started using copper and iron rings in ceremonies, and the iron rings had a key symbol on them, meaning that the wife now has control of the house. If you like it, then you should have put a key on it. Come medieval times, the ring gets another upgrade. Now we have these precious gems to be added to them, a little bit more glam. Rubies symbolized passion, sapphires symbolized the heavens, and diamonds to show strength, because they were rock hard, and obviously you know the rest. Come the 12th century, the Christian church declared marriage as a holy sacrament, so rings were solely used now for that ceremony. That's when the engagement ring came into place. There needed to be another trade or promise that was just as strong as a wedding band. So now there's rings for pretty much everything.
Peasants, shotgun weddings, and women just had a rough time. That's right, it's top 10 messed up things that happened to wives in the medieval ages. Number 10, property. It should be no surprise to anyone watching this today, but women's rights and the treatment of women was not everyone's priority in the medieval ages. Dudes were just mean. I'm sorry. Where did it all stem from? I'm not sure. I'm just a guy with blue eyes, and sometimes I say funny stuff. But what I do know is that women were treated more like men's property, which is that sucks. That's gross. No one likes that. Which they are not, thank you very much. Sometimes women were traded like currency for livestock animals, land, and just business dealings in general, because women didn't have a say in the matter. Like, I'll give you 2 goats for my daughter. Here you go, dude. Which is just, that's not a fair deal, dude. That's not a trade, man. Not a trade. Number 9, promising young woman. Remember when I said if I talk about medieval times, I was gonna bring this up? It's a classic, a medieval staple. Couldn't talk about medieval times without it, really. What am I getting at? Well, that's marrying a woman in her midlife, about 12 years old. Yeah, I know, it's gross, deplorable, despicable, naughty, and just unsavory. Okay, so people only lived to their mid-30s and 40s back then, so time is of the essence. Sure, I get it, but come on, man. I am hereby banning any cradle robbing or diaper sniping. That includes the dudes who out of high school and they're dating a woman still in high school. I'm banning it, that's it. Chetty says no. Number 8, bedroom watch party. Okay, let me paint the scene for you. It's 2009. You just finished pre-drinking and watching the latest episode of Jersey Shore with your friends. There's enough hair product in your hair to keep a bowl of lime jello still. You slap on some Uggs and head to the club. You meet someone who's cute AF. Maybe it's the tequila, maybe it's the apple bottom jeans, but you want to come home with this person. Instead of making it to your bedroom, a bathroom nightclub is now your domain for love. People walk by and witness your actions. But you do not care because this is your life and it's 2009 and you can do whatever you want. Okay, so that, but medieval times. Yeah, it's not a nightclub, but people would just come into your bedroom to witness that you went through with it on the marriage. Nobody wants that. That's just weird. That's not normal. Come on in. Me and my wife are about to... Come on in. Number 7. The Hunger Games. In the not so common case of a woman trying to divorce her husband because, you know, she's most likely not being treated very well and she's just not allowed to divorce, and it's really just a messy time for women. How do you lose a woman? You forget to cherish her. Or you fight in combat to determine who wins the divorce. And by winning the divorce, I mean whoever wins lives. Yes, this was something that was actually done in medieval Germany. Basically, there's a little arena. Husband gets put into a hole to make it fair, I guess. There's a sack of rocks and a club, and then you just full send it and start swinging at each other. I feel like most divorces suck. Not that I would know, I've never been married, but I mean, come on, are the married people really telling me at home right now that they want to swing rocks and clubs at each other? I don't think so. Number 6, gross. Genghis Khan, maybe the most down bad dude to ever get on a horse and do what he did. Well, maybe except Arthur Morgan, but he's not real, even though I wish that chiseled, handsome, rugged man was. Despite my daydreaming fantasies, I'm here to talk about a really bad dude, Genghis Khan, medieval conqueror and womanizer. He had so many wives, who a good portion of which were forced at sword point to be his wife, and husband and wives were not exactly sitting around the couch watching news together back then. They did the deed, whether or not both partners signed off on it. What I'm getting at is he had so many offspring that his DNA is still with us today. 0.5% of the male population on Earth are descendants of the Mongol warrior. That's over 60 million dudes. That's just insane, bro. Number 5, the moss. I am gonna come in here and tell you I know what it's like to be a woman, or pretend I understand. There's been lots of great photos of humans that have been taken throughout history, but one that we miss for sure is when I was a kid and I learned what happens to women on those special couple days of every month. Not shock, just confusion. The look on my face, it was priceless. I wish y'all could have seen it. We got things mostly figured out now though, but think about the past. Medieval times, not an understanding time for ladies. There were just no products to help in that scenario. So, have you ever wondered what they did? I did. Weird thing to think, I guess, but oh well. Moss pads, yeah. Take some moss, you wrap it up in a cloth, bada bing, bada boom, now you're in business. Which actually is really smart when you think about it. I never would have thought of that, but I'm a dude, so I wouldn't think about that. I don't think about those big thinking thoughts and things sometimes. I'm just a big dumb guy. Number 4, witch hunt. This is also a time where if a woman speaks out of line, or does something to upset the feng shui of things, there's a good chance she will get labeled a witch and burned at the stake. This was becoming an issue because, well, it was becoming a witch hunt, meaning anything that was slightly not cool or basically anything people feared or disliked could be labeled witchcraft, and thus likely an innocent woman would be burned at the stake. I mean, it sounds like they had it down to a science, really. Woman does something crazy, we'll bring out the charcoal briquettes. No, see, that's not right. It's not like they could have done this amazing thing called investigate. You know, see if the woman was actually innocent or the claims that she was a witch because she wants to be paid a fair wage like a man. Doesn't really sound like witchcraft to me. Maybe don't be so hasty to bust out the pitch and torches. That's all I'm saying. Number 3, you gotta do what you gotta do. I know what it's like to be down on your luck. Trust me, it sucks. It's not fun. But you budget, save, and work hard. You'll be back in the black before you know it. Women of medieval times got up and went to work. The kind of work a lot of women were forced to do because of circumstances. The oldest profession in the book, selling booty. It's been happening since day one, and it won't be going anywhere soon. Now, I'm not here to condemn that kind of work. And funny enough, in medieval times, it was considered to be an actual profession. I just feel if you're gonna be in that line of work, it should be your choice. I'm a Las Vegas kind of guy. I love gambling, boozing, and the freedom to do what you want after strolling out of a casino after too much drinking and gambling. If you know what I mean. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to make the bread, and they just had to do what they had to do. And that's it. Number 2, Hell Hath No Fury. Princess Olga of Kiev was a prime example of hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. Long story short, her husband was torn apart by trees. Some gruesome stuff. It was actually, if you look at it, it's not nice. So like the Sith on its worst behavior, she plotted her revenge. When 20 men she deemed were all responsible for her husband's passing were coming into town, she had a large ditch dug where they were buried alive. That is so heinous. I can't even. She then extended a welcome to more of the men responsible. When they arrived, she invited them to wash up in her bathhouse, where she had the doors locked and the place torched, like it was a witch hunt or something. Just had them cooked. Just cooked them up. But I mean, they burn women, so why not? Why not cook some dudes? Okay. Number 1. Honestly, who throws a shoe? If you've ever been to a wedding, then you've probably seen the bride throw a bouquet of flowers to waiting bridesmaids and other lucky ladies. Because the lady who catches the flowers is the next woman to be swept off her feet and to be married. Put a ring on it. Kind of ending on a wholesome note here, which is kind of nice, but it's still a little messed up. Hear me out. In medieval times, it wasn't flowers, it was shoes. At first, it doesn't seem so bad, right? Shoes. We'll throw some shoes around. Why not? Besides, the shoe being thrown too hard, you wouldn't want to catch a loafer on the side of the head. That would hurt. I think we forget how filthy our shoes can be. I mean, they walk through everything. Dirt, mud, blood, and if you're in medieval times, having a good old-fashioned wedding in the village probably meant some manure. Eesh. Well, I'm all about tradition, but maybe we could throw the flowers instead. They just smell better, and there's less poop.
Kicking off our list at number 10, ancient Roman winemaking. Give it about 4 years. Almost ready. Ah, yes, the Roman days where we all wear togas and drink delicious wine and, get close with each other for days on end. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this wine sucked. It was dangerous to consume. Being a winemaker, this ancient sommelier, you would consume about 12 grams of lead per day, just tasting your creation, right? It's horrible. Winemakers would harvest the grapes, they would press the fat with their feet, the best part, right? It's what we all want to do. And then in order to wash out that size 14 Roman foot taste, makers would lace the wine with lead to, sweeten it up. Remember what we did to Coca-Cola back in the day? That wasn't nearly as bad as a bottle of red lead redemption back in the ancient Roman times. Yeah, I'm gonna never complain about table wine at a wedding ever again. Red or white, I'm like, thank you. I don't care if it's really warm, thank you.
Number 9, leech collectors. Dude, if you didn't grow up fishing, this next one's gonna make your skin crawl. Leeches. Just watch Stand By Me, you'll get it. These bloodsuckers have been collected for years, like centuries years, and still used to this day. Used as an ancient medicinal aid, leeches would let your blood. Bloodletting. Basically just suck out all the infection, disease, germ, nastiness right out of you and all out of that wound. They basically eat the infection and speed up the process. A leech collector did exactly that. They jumped into bogs and marshes and just kinda let them attach themselves to, well, themselves. Then bottle them up and sell them. Tons of health benefits too. Some negatives, of course. First off, the leech collectors could bleed a lot. Obviously, right? Back and forth, in and out of the river for hours. Sometimes these guys would even pass out or die. No band-aids, unfortunately. No added danger pay too. I didn't expect that one.
Number 8, armpit plucker. My unibrow, this right here, this is a new hobby of mine. I'm plucking this bad boy every other day and I'm thrilled about it. Armpit hair, on the other hand, I would shriek, okay? I only have like 7 armpit hairs, so I gotta preserve them, right? But in ancient times, they gots to go. Working out was often done naked, right? Ancient Greek naked exercise in the scorching sun, nothing better. So naturally an armpit or two is gonna stink. So the solution here to stay, sane while you're training was for everybody to just pluck their armpit hairs out, okay? No more unpleasant odors, that's it. But the point here, imagine doing that job. Somebody had to do, doink. Someone had to do all of them. I mean, plucking hairs now, that's satisfying at least and a little bit, easier. You could laser half your But a warrior's armpit? No thank you. The Old Spice guy would have quit his job.
Number 7, barber surgeons. If you like candy like me, you've made a regular visit to the dentist. Little numbing here, a little numbing there, little flavored mold and floss. Yeah, not always as comfortable. Actually, a trip to the dentist chair was extremely scary and dangerous. Good news is they also cut your hair. A barber surgeon was a very popular and respected job throughout the Roman times all the way to about the 18th century. These people were skilled at anything surgical. Remove a tooth, get all the bugs and lice out of your hair, I'll do it in one sitting. Not the cleanest job though. Lice, blood, infected teeth just hanging around all day, the smell alone, ugh. You know everyone had tonsil stones back then too. Worms living in their teeth. They had an extensive understanding of the human body. Well, as best they could. These people were also in charge of dyeing hair as well. Pigeon poop, urine, dung. These people tried it all for that Farrah Fawcett blonde blowout. Okay, so a little 1 on the sides, 2 on top, and then we're just gonna yank those teeth right out of you. All right, should be about 15 minutes.
Number 6, toad doctor. If you don't want to go through the lengths of becoming a medical doctor and doing anything, just go the toad route. It's a little bit easier. Be very specific about where you're doing your activities. There you go. That way your competition is next to none, right? There you go. Back in the day, it was the 1600s, mind you, but medical researchers believed that toads had inside of them healing properties. That's me spreading out a toad, so you can see that. So they were often dried up and powdered and then applied directly to your skin to soothe inflammation. Awesome. I don't know what's worse in this situation, the guy getting the toad's guts rubbed on his orbital, or the doctor who has to dry up said toad. Both are pretty bad.
Number 5, gardeners. If you've ever done some fun gardening on a nice Sunday afternoon, you'll know that your back hurts, there's bees everywhere, and it's hot under that sun. Gardening is hard work. Imagine being a gardener in Rome or Middle Ages. Like no tools, no water source, no sun safety, and the king's private fruits here and queen's favorite red anthuriums there. Gardens up walls, secret private hidden gardens underground. That's a long day. Also, that's a lot of walking pails of water to these things. Yeah, no hoses. Like to walk to the river and grab a bucket and come back. A lot. These people must have had shoulders and lats like a great white shark, dude. Just squatting double pails for 16 hours a day? You know those people were jacked. Also, they didn't have weed whackers, so when you look at these beautiful painted castles and gardens, just know someone was getting screamed at with a rusty pair of shears. Yeah. Also, no lawnmowers. Like how? The whole field? Okay.
Number 4, arming squire. Being a knight obviously sounds cool. They have the sword, the horse, the flowing hair, the lady, they're saving the damsel in the tower with the dragon and the breath. We get it, we've seen Shrek. Sometimes they lose a hand like Jaime Lannister, okay? But that's just what being a knight is, right? It's glorious, right? Well, first of all, this process starts when you're 7 years old. Then you would be given to a noble to learn for 7 more years. Now finally at age 14, you would become a squire. A knight's intern. Yeah, not an ideal job to have when you're young, but a royal job nonetheless. And also you don't have a choice, so have fun. Arming squires, see, these lads had the responsibility of repairing a knight's armor while the knight was still wearing it. Yeah, up close and personal. Yeah, which buckle broke was it? Awesome. Awesome. How was the battle? You guys did really well out there. Yeah, repairing chainmail on a grown man's thigh. Not ideal. Welcome to the Dark Ages, I guess. After these epic, messy battles, arming squires would have to clean everything off of their armor. Inside and out. Yeah, this was long before Dawn soap was a thing. So they had to clean said armor with urine. Yeah. Hey, let's wash this piss out with a bucket of piss. That ought to do it.
Number 3, alchemists. Alchemy in history has gone through a couple of transitions. Basically, at first, an alchemist dealt with everything. Literally. From ancient China, India, and Greece, these people mixed what they could find and see. You know what I mean? See what happens if we mix some dirt and some olive oil. You know, write it down. They were scientists. It's the foundation of chemistry alone. They did experiments. Heavily spiritual, philosophical, and medicinal. Medieval alchemists produced hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, and sodium carbonate. They were good. One eye of newt here, little stomach acid here, and whoa, 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 whoa! Also so heavily associated with witchcraft and wizardry over the years. Potions, elixirs. The alchemist's purpose was to advance and help with the quality of life. Lots of explosions though. Yeah, very dangerous. Mercury, carbon monoxide, yeah, dangerous stuff. They were playing around with things that were really bad for us, for the purpose of making us better. Very selfless job, you know?
Number 2, rower. I can't even raise my hand in class longer than 6 minutes. I have to start holding it, then I switch, and then I just bail on the question, and then I live my life not knowing what hydrogen is. Alright? I couldn't imagine being a rower, okay? Heading back to the times of ancient Greece, where wars were fought through naval battle, left-handed, right-handed, guess what? Didn't matter. Your arms were shaking every single day, all day long. When we think of these rowers, this job obviously sucked. It was one of the worst to have, and more often than not, it was sadly slaves who had the misfortune of propelling these warlords into their battle. The payment was also non-existent, really. Just a meal for the day, if that. Asking for a break or not keeping up to the rower next to you would ultimately lead to your death.
And the number 1 spot, the gong farmer. The stink of all stinks. These men were employed to go around and basically scoop and clean out bathroom houses. Plumber waste disposal hybrid. You get where I'm going with this. They were the people who dug out and removed human excrement from privies and cesspits. They were the OG waste collectors. But by hand. Yeah. And scoops and buckets and stuff. No gloves, no PPE, just hand loading them into trolleys, buckets sloshing all over the place in the middle of the night. Obviously being disgusting, gong farmers were only allowed to work at night, hence the nightmen. These guys would have to hop down into these pits at night, waist deep, swimming around, and just taking turns on who's loading and who's scooping. They were paid well though. Yeah, usually double or triple the regular. Toxic gases, infections, drowning. This job was dangerous. And definitely the grossest. Just sitting on your lunch break, you know what I mean? Ham and cheese, yum. Number 10, public latrines. Starting this list off, we're going back to the Romans. Do as they do, right? So picture a modern day locker room, just all sitting beside each other. But toilets. Yeah, gross. But social. And everyone helped each other. Yeah, whenever you're done with that little sponge thing there, Patroclus, throw her on down, buddy boy. Thanks. Take your time. Yeah, in ancient Rome, public latrines, aka public washrooms, didn't have toilet paper, or seats, or hand soap, or separators. Just sitting on a church pew, shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. Worst part, you would just sit and share a stick with a sponge thing stuck on top of it. You would all share the sponge. It's tradition, right? They did this for like 1,000 years. Said it built confidence and social skills. Dude, I can't even go to a urinal with someone sitting beside me because I'm shy, let alone sitting next to each other, showing each other's pictures from the cottage weekend, talking shop in front of 10 people. Hey buddy, you mind just scooching over there? Yeah, it's gonna be a messy one. We ate a lot of figs earlier. Thanks.
Number 9, feed the dead. Since we're on the topic of ancient Rome, let's dive in with a couple of libations. Yeah, we love libations around here. Throughout history, libations have been offered to the dead. Honor those who have passed, right? One of these. Pour one out for the homie, right? Where did this come from? Well, this is a tradition that we still see today, but it began, of course, in the ancient world. It began in Egypt and other parts of Africa, and of course, ancient Greece. Those are the main 3 right there. Pour one out for the lad, but in ancient Roman tradition, they would actually pour the wine into their resting place. How amazing is that? Just a nice snorkel for the dead. Romans crafted these lead or wood tubes during their lost comrade's burial. They would have it included. So afterwards, it's a one-way trip to the afterlife. You're not spilling anything on the ground. Nobody gets left behind in celebrations, even after death. I love it. I could see how one would think this is a little unnatural, but I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't getting any ideas right about now. Yeah, after I go, just dump a bunch of iron brew down the pipe. I'll be good. I'll be strong as in the next life.
Number 8, boot and rally. Ah, the old boot and rally. Drinking beers from a stinky old used boot. The old shoey. Yeah, I've played some rugby over the years. I've drank a boot or two for a nasty try, and let me tell you, when your 6'8" flanker has athlete's foot, probably the most disgusting tradition that we probably shouldn't let live on. The boot and rally started from military origins. Soldiers would celebrate or initiate each other by drinking a full beer from a fellow comrade's, or even if you were lucky enough, the general's boot. Yeah, after of course it had been worn all day, fighting battles. Can you imagine what you'd step on in and over during a battle or war? That's pretty gross, dude. Just so hot and stinky and wet from the muck and mud, and it's your turn to enjoy a crispy Molson out of a size 13 wide with trench foot? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. No, I'm full. Not to be confused, of course, with puke and rally. That's, well, I guess, well, also hand in hand with each other, you know? They go together, like spaghetti and meatballs. The old puking from drinking out of a shoe and then drinking some more until you puke more. Tradition. Skull!
Number 7, crummy wine. Nice, I love drinking wine and then immediately having to chew. That's lovely, let's talk about that. My favorite part of a wedding has to be the speeches, or the toasts, right? Whatever. I love watching somebody improv their way through an important wedding speech. The train wreck, always. They're always way too long, way too personal, or just sad. Throw a joke in, I don't know, maybe a pun, wouldn't hurt. But where did this all begin, right? Back in the 1800s, only men were allowed to give these toasts, which is hilarious. It was always the oldest friend, the groom, best man, father of the bride, you name it. The whole thing would have been done in 8 minutes, I imagine, because guys suck at speeches. At least from what I've seen. A lot of ums. Wedding toasts go back as far as the 6th century BC. When Greeks were getting married, the father of the bride would drink the first glass of wine to make sure there was no poison in it. What an OG. Romans would drop a piece of burnt toast into the wine in order to make the wine taste less bitter as well. Yeah, hence the term toast. Yeah, wine was so bad back in the day, they had to use burnt toast, Crystal Light, just to make it better. Okay, cheers. That's it.
Number 6, handshakes. We all do it. Meeting the in-laws folks, about to smash a job interview. Usually starts with this. Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. But after living through this pandemic, why do we still do this? Well, the handshake has existed in some form or another for thousands of years. One popular theory is that the gesture began as a way of conveying your intentions of peace. Lots of loyalty issues back then. Empty hand means no weapons. Some suggest that the up and down motion of the handshake was supposed to dislodge any knives or loose, hidden up the sleeve threats. The other explanation is that the handshake was a symbol of trust, and that I give you my germs, you give me your germs. We both trust each other, hands meet in hands. Now, add a little bit of spit or some blood into the mix and we got ourselves a real bond there, brother. The bacteria from one person to another person would be shared and mutual. Disgusting. In ancient Rome, the handshake was even used as a symbol of friendship and love. Well, that's nice. A pair of clasped hands even appear on the ancient Roman coins, signifying peace. That's a good one. I like this. It turned from gross to nice all of a sudden.
Number 5, wet willies. And immediately back into the gross. Here we go. I'm already angry thinking about a wet willy. I've gotten a few in my life and I'm still mad at all 3 of them. Whoever thought of this, like, yeah, I'm just gonna suck my finger and then put it in someone's head. Put it right in their ear canal. Freaks, disgusting. Keep your coffee breath away from my good ideas. This weird tradition / prank / gross hobby all began back in 1864 in, of course, England. You guessed it, that's the origin of the term, and it all started when a wet, salivated finger went in the ear of an English fisherman named, you guessed it again, Willie. What if I said Brian? You'd be like, what the? Wet William, we could do that. A wet Walter. Ooh, that's a bit too serious. Everybody laughed at this point, okay? This changed the game. It was like the moonwalk. Everyone was like, what did he just do? What happened? How did he do that? Growing up with ear problems, don't do wet willies. Wet willies are a bad idea. Digging out wax with your pinky even can create problems. If a vacuum forms between your ear and the eardrum, and then all of a sudden the sudden depressurization can damage your eardrums. And also, it's fucking disgusting, so don't do those anymore.
Number 4, blowing out candles. I just did this a couple weeks ago. So the people who ate that cake, yeah, sorry for all my germs. But it's my party and I'll cry if I want to. That should be a song. The age-old tradition of aggressively exhaling your bodily fluid and air before arguing over who gets the biggest piece. I love it. Traditions, right? However, thanks to modern medicine now, we know blowing out candles can expel virus particles, just like breathing, shouting, coughing, and sneezing. And if the person's infected, that makes it really gross. So a nice big gust of your lungs ought to do it. People believe that the smoke from the candles carry their wishes and prayers off to the gods. Good omens kind of deal. It's also thought that the smoke would ward off evil spirits and bring positive energy for the coming year. Either or, it's fucking gross and we all still do it. Next time you're about to make a wish on your special day, just remember you're spitting on a cake. Am I wrong here? Birthday to you.
Number 3, plague flowers. Speak of the devil. Historically, the symbolism of flowers has changed quite a bit. Flowers like to bob and weave, you know? It's like, someone died, oh, they got married. Okay, well, here's the same thing. Enjoy. There's the flowers for the centerpieces, the bouquets for the bride and bridesmaids. There's flowers everywhere at a wedding. But why is that? Well, the idea of carrying a bouquet at a wedding dates back to ancient Greece, where it was believed that carrying a bouquet was thought to ward off evil spirits. Yeah, I hate when those interrupt weddings. It's always the worst. Like, any objections? A ghoul stands up. I'm like, oh, it's my ex. I knew it. I knew he'd show up. That's just Bagul. Yeah, it's a college thing. Just sit down. He's fine. But a little later on down the line, the presence of bouquets at weddings got a little darker and, dare I say, a little more precautionary. During the Middle Ages into the Renaissance, when the Black Death was running rampant throughout Europe, folks were trying anything and everything to try and ward off the plague. No more spirits. We're just kind of focused on, you know, the physical plague at hand. See, back then people believed that smells carried contagion, so we'd fight them off by using good smells. So people would fill their pockets with fragrant things to keep the plague at bay. It's like those plague doctors with the big bird nose, just stuffed with dandelions or whatever they can find. This was later integrated into wedding practices, and brides started carrying down the aisle stinky stuff, like a bouquet of garlic or dill. Imagine having a nice dill pickle sticking out, you're like, yeah, it's the big day. All to protect them from catching a plague or two. Over the years, the stinky stuff was then replaced again with nice smelling flowers, thank God. But imagine if it stayed on garlic. What a dream. I love garlic and or dill. Sorry to all my vampire friends, but I'm going old school for my big day, personally. Just onions and garlic. I'm like, ah, it smells so good. It's so good always.
Number 2, hazing. First off, I don't condone it. Second off, I've never done it or been a part of it. Not really a frat guy myself. But I did have friends dare me to do stupid growing up. I can't lie. North America is full of colleges and universities who take part in this tradition, as they take it very seriously. If you can even call it a tradition. The hazing rituals that commence in fraternities and sororities can be deadly. Literally. There's a million scary stories that are true surrounding these challenging initiation processes, and I'd say the majority of them are sadistic and dangerous. If you have to do something that risks your life to prove that you're down, nah man, that's not for me. I got essays to write. Hazing has a history dating as far back to 387 BC with the founding of Plato's Academy. At the time, hazing was called penalism, which meant, quote, a system of mild oppression and torment practiced upon first-year students. Torment is the right word here. Even Plato criticized the practice of hazing. He's like, nah, that is too mucheth. Like, I understand camaraderie and brotherhood and all, but like chugging ketchup until you're on life support? Like, the school debt's enough, you know?
And finally, number 1, the monkey buffet. Okay, this last one here is a little unusual, but I want involved. I have a little FOMO already just looking at this. Look at these little guys. Come on, they're having so much fun. As its name subtly suggests, the Monkey Buffet Festival in Bangkok has everybody at the table. Everybody eats. Smack dab, right in the middle of the ruins of the Frag Pram Sam Yacht Temple in Lopburi, Thailand, a beautiful tall banquet awaits. It's a 13th century temple just covered in fresh fruit. It looks so inviting. I'm hungry right now and I'm looking at it. I'm like, ooh boy. Thing is, I said everybody eats. That's not entirely true. This feast is held in celebration of Lopburi's thousands of macaques, thought to bring good luck to the area and its people. Only the macaques eat at this festival, and yes, it can get a little messy, obviously. They like throwing food around, I've heard. They like throwing their as well, so maybe just kind of heads up, I don't know. So if you're attending, bring your own snack, or else there's pre-chewed watermelon waiting for you. That's also yummy too, if you don't mind. The macaque hair, just avoid that. We'll pull it out.